Okay, class, today we're going to talk about linear perspective. Perspective, what is it? An approximate representation on a flat surface, such as paper, of an image as it is seen by the eye. The two most characteristic features of perspective are that objects are drawn, 1, smaller as their distance from the observer increases, and 2, foreshortened. The size of an object's dimensions along the line of sight are relatively shorter than the dimensions across the line of sight. So in art, back in the day, they didn't really have a handle on what perspective was or how it worked. They knew it existed, but they didn't quite have it down. Like in this painting, you can obviously see the men are way too big for the size of the buildings. In fact, that dude doesn't even need a ladder to get over the wall. And in this one, you can see the perspective and the size of the people change dramatically. Like some of these folks on the right-hand side look like giants, and the people in the building look like little bitty people, and they all look like they're in the same space. And here's another example of bad perspective. So you can see the size of the monk. He looks like he's as tall as the tower, but he also looks like he's standing right next to the building. So you don't get that sense of atmospheric perspective, which we'll talk about too. It really wasn't till Leonardo da Vinci came along and figured out how to properly use perspective that people got the hang of it in art. So you can see all the stairs, and this is 1-point perspective, which is what we'll be working on. Here's another Da Vinci and another good example of perspective. All the lines are traveling back to the one vanishing point, which makes it 1-point perspective. So we're going to be using linear perspective on this assignment. What is it? It's a mathematical system for drawing objects that use lines and vanishing points to create the illusion of space and distance on a flat surface such as paper. And my apologies, this slide got cut off, but there are 3 types of linear perspective. 1-point perspective, which is a single vanishing point, 2-point perspective, which has 2 vanishing points, and 3-point perspective, which is 3 vanishing points. So here's an example of a street view using 1-point perspective. So everything falls to the same vanishing point on the horizon line. So the horizon line is the same as your eye level. So if you're standing or seated, it's where your eyes would be looking. The vanishing point is where all lines converge. Like, as we're looking back into space at this the railroad tracks, they seem to disappear. We know they're still there, but it just comes to a vanishing point. And your horizon line or your eye level can change. So this is a very low horizon line, and it's also called worm's eye view. And here's an example of a high horizon line. So you're looking down at the city, and this is sometimes called bird's eye view. Using 1-point perspective, use your hard lead pencil, 2H, to lay down faint lines. Use your 2B, also known as a number 2, to draw darker lines. And some of you just might have a number 2 only. Just use what you have available. Keep your pencils as sharp as possible. Accuracy is important. Always use your T-square and triangles to make straight, vertical, and horizontal lines. Remember, all parallel lines will converge in a single vanishing point. If measuring is involved, make sure it's accurate. Always measure twice and draw once. I'd like you all to do a few boxes, like a scratch paper, like a trial run before you get into your assignment. So what you'll do is first draw a horizon line, which will be most likely in the middle of your paper, just to make it simple. Next, you're going to mark in where your vanishing point is going to be. And again, keep it simple, keep it in the middle of the page for this exercise. Third, you'll draw a box, and this can be above or below your horizon line. Next, you're going to draw some lines from the corners of your box, your square, to the vanishing point. Once you've done that, you want to figure out the depth of your box, so how far back in space it's going, and then draw a line across that will be parallel with your horizon line. Now you have a box or rectangle that is in perfect 1-point perspective. And before you move on to your assignment, it really will be beneficial to try out a few more boxes on a blank piece of paper to just get the hang of it. So you can see some of these are above the horizon line, some of them are below the horizon line, some of them are on the horizon line, but all of their lines going from the corners go back to that same vanishing point. So your homework assignment is going to be to draw a room in 1-point perspective. Here's an example of some student work. Here's a room, 1-point perspective. All the lines are clean. They all go back to the same vanishing point. Here's another example. Again, clean lines. You want to keep this pretty tidy. And one more example of good 1-point perspective. And here's some examples of what I don't want. So I don't want lines that look like they were not drawn against a hard edge. Here's another poor example of perspective. It doesn't look like these lines are really following any kind of rules. They look hand-drawn. I mean, without using a ruler or a hard edge. So I want the lines clean and neat, and I want it all making sense. So I'm going to do a demo quickly for you guys as well.